Let me see if we can get Topi online.
Hey, I'm here.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. Good. How are you?
Very good, very good. Were you at Recotech?
Yes, I was.
How was it this year?
It was okay. It was okay. Maybe few more people would have been expected, but pretty good. Pretty good.
Pretty good. Okay, cool. And now Slush is going on or not?
Sorry?
Slush is starting?
Yeah, it's just starting. Yeah. It's few busy days in Helsinki, obviously.
Nice. Great to have you with us, Topi. You're going to talk also about the impact of ESG. So I would like to give you the floor. And if we have any questions, please put them in the chat so we can take them after the presentation of Topi. Are you ready?
Yes, always.
Do you have a presentation that you would like to show?
Yes, I have.
There it comes.
Let's see. Just gonna move this away. So can you see this?
Yeah, we predict the future of sustainable real estate. There you go.
Super. I'm just gonna move a little bit more. Good. Can I start?
Yes, you can. Yes, you can.
Excellent. And like a quick note from the beginning that I've been under weird internet connection today, so just bear with me. Hopefully it works. So everybody, my name is Topi. I'm one of the three co-founders of Skenariolabs. We are a Finnish data analytic company for real estate, and we work with a lot of the institutional stakeholders in real estate, like government, financial institutes, a lot of public sector customers. And I was thinking of today that I would basically tell a little bit what the ESG, or how do we impact the ESG part to our customers in a way, and why we are basically doing what we do with these customers. I will start of basically telling us what we do as a company, and then I go a little bit about like what is the real challenge for our customers in terms of looking at the ESG part of things. And then I will basically end up. Of course, I'm not going to give you our Coca-Cola recipe, but almost. So keep your pens ready. And then I'm going to end up with what do we see, where kind of the market ESG for the PropTechs, where it's going, at least for us. And yeah, hopefully there's questions, and hopefully there's some talks also afterwards. Anyway, we basically, Skenariolabs, we help our clients to understand and manage the connections between valuations of buildings and to the performance, meaning energy and carbon, and then to the ESG risks. And we basically assess all of these in a proper unit accuracy, but in a portfolio level. So basically, our clients make decisions based on what we are on our data. And what does this mean? Very coarsely put, we basically, our platform have like three main components. So when we assess real estate, we always look at real estate from these three things. So we have an automated valuation model looking at the values of real estate. We do commercial, residential, by the way. And then we have the performance side, which looks at the energy, carbon, kind of the technical side of things, also the technical value of real estate. And then we can figure out optimal renovation plans or renovation potentials from these buildings or properties or property units. And then we have our newest thing, but it's been cooking already before the ESG was a thing, but it's more looking at the climate risks and combining the characteristics of the real estate into that climate risk. So even though we do standard like ESG reporting in a way, I would more like to say that we provide ingredients for that standard ESG reporting. But looking at the risk side of things, for example, we can tell you that what is the value at risk. So how much euros for your portfolio is actually risked now because of the ESG risks. That's like one example. What do we actually do? So we work with basically with property lending and compliance. So with credit risk banks and lenders, doing valuations and monitoring, looking at risks, and then we have different kind of green finance schemes going on. And what does this mean, this valuations and monitoring, for example? As the ESG risks, I'm going to go there, but after ESG risk or the whole need to assess ESG risks in the loan origination process has become more of a must. In the valuations, like in the loan origination situation, our customers need to assess energy carbon and basically how does it fit the banks or the regulators' objectives. Then we do decarbonization pathways, mostly for public sector. So there's 100,000 or million property units somewhere, a city. And then we do property unit specific decarbonization pathways for those. And I'm going to show soon or later how do we do that. And then we support real estate experts. So we work with public and private sector, but it's pretty much like harnessing their own data in order to give them decision-making tools, basically using our platform. And then we have with some institutional customers and also some big private sector customers, we have basically built these white labels for their own internal processes. Good. We have two products. So Skenariolabs Real Estate, it's more for the decarbonizations at scale and understanding values, risks, and then kind of the optimal decarbonization pathways and all together. And then we have Skenariolabs Finance, which is more for the financial institutes, basically supporting in sustainable finance or investment decisions through that. Good. We work with mostly, as said, with institutional stakeholders in real estate, but we have some private customers, we have some private partners, we work with some energy companies, and then banks. And here's some numbers, but at the moment we work with, I'd say, over 200 cities and municipalities, and we are in the, let's say, decision-making process, like that the banks use our analytics in their loan origination or monitoring process or compliance process. There's 8 banks, more to come soon, hopefully. Close, they're very, very slow, very slow, but we're happy to have 8. But together we do around 70,000 property assessments per month in 6 market areas. And different kind of assessments, obviously. But our customers, as they are the institutional players in real estate who are the first decision makers when we think about decarbonizing our society through real estate, with our own existing customer base, we have impacted 10 million buildings, existing customer base by 2025, 10 million buildings. And we just basically, got started with this offering in a way. So why this is relevant or what we do? So this is more the problem side, and this is what you know. So obviously, real estate generates 40% of the global carbon emissions, and obviously in our climate initiatives, the role of real estate is very, very critical. Our company was, by the way, invited to COP27. I just got back from Egypt a few days back. And it's interesting to see how the role of real estate is in the global, let's say, global climate crisis solving scheme. So it's in a way, it's important based on the impact, but still food security and waste are the kind of a more tangible ones that we are, in terms of technology, that we are looking into, which is interesting. But obviously, real estate has a big role. But kind of looking at the emissions and looking at kind of the decarbonization task of real estate, we need to understand that 80% of the buildings we live, work, and play in today will still be standing in 2050. So actually, the decarbonization task is about retrofitting existing buildings and then finding smart ways to finance that. And fortunately, there's like the finance sector is basically created a lot of new initiatives, guidelines, depending where we are. Obviously, we know and our customers are mostly under the EBA, in European Banking Authority. But we're already seeing signs that terms of loans or financing are tied into a carbon or energy rating of a building, or will be. That's at least already something that we know that it will happen. And this obviously not only kind of changes the approach, in terms of lending, but also changes the whole investment thesis in real estate, and already started to change that. So when you look at how this, for example, from our point of view, if you look at kind of what is the impact of ESG, there's already new guidelines on loan origination and monitoring. So how the ESG parameters needs to be incorporated into risk supervision. There's we can go to a very old legacy bank, and there's a business risk manager, and then there's the collateral risk manager. And the business risk manager cannot understand why a building or a property in a very high class area of a city gets a lesser marginal than, let's say, some other property with a better energy efficiency, but it will be realistic soon. And these are the talks we're in with our customers. Then there's a lot of new demand for reporting. So for compliance side is changing as well. Few concrete examples of all of this. When we started, or even in the last few years ago, it was totally weird idea that advanced statistical models could be utilized in actually giving out loans. So real estate sector, which is very much legacy, obviously all humans need to be involved. There needs to be a human expert who signs something. Not anymore. So at least to some extent, models can be used in actual processes, decision-making processes, and also that energy-related parameters already weigh as much as the market-related parameters, if you talk about banks, which is very, very, very interesting, of course. Then about looking at the investment thesis or the change in real estate. So obviously there's a lot of new demand for assets in real estate. New from the financial sector coming new ways of look at risks. So ESG risk need to be incorporated. So the increase in demand to assess these risks and values more comprehensively, obviously, is increasing. And for example, few EPCB or taxonomy, but for example, you hear that already, like in many market areas, in the next few years, landlords or needs to be over a certain energy label that they can rent or sell. And now everybody's waiting what will actually happen, but this is basically the starting point. And there's like these for example, in terms of taxonomy, that idea that when you are going to take a renovation loan, you should somehow be able to demonstrate that your loan will increase the energy efficiency in the building by 30%. So there's a lot of new demands for assessing the real estate, which means that there's new demand for technology, obviously. So we need to capture those complex nonlinear mechanisms out of the reach of the human expertise. And kind of example from pandemic time. So we've obviously been active in the valuation sector or valuation side as well. And before that, we were always, before the pandemic, we were always in the talks with valuation experts that, if somebody has been in a market for 30 years, he definitely knows what is the market value of that office space now. But then with the pandemic, the goal changed a little bit. So then the question was that, or the need was that, okay, what is the value of that office space in Q3 next year? And then it became a little bit harder for a human expert. And now there's like additional layer of complicity. So now what is the value of the office space Q4 next year, and how should we renovate it to maximize whatever is our objectives as a stakeholder? So now this is the question. And now it's pretty much impossible to human, at least intuitively, to give answers. So that's why there's new demand for technology, and for companies like us and many tech companies, this whole sector and PropTech in general, there's a lot of opportunity. So technologies are allowed more space in decision making, as we're a good example. Obviously, there's bigger, better companies that are more higher already in the decision making, but this is where it gets. And obviously, like PropTech and the whole kind of real estate industry is changing faster than ever now. And funny enough, it started from the sustainability aspects and bringing ESG to the mix. And obviously the opportunity also is for our customers. So more efficient and streamlined processes with better risk management. So for example, our customer banks sell more loans, even though they are somehow, the demand of assessing risk and basically assessing everything is much higher. So that there's like much more work for a loan, but now when technology is allowed to be used, actually they can be much more streamlined and they can actually sell more loans and manage the risk better as well, because they don't do it anymore once a year. With technology, can they do once a month? Super. Okay, about this decision making then. So maybe now jumping to the real challenge for our customers. So when they are making these decisions, these long-lasting, sustainable decisions that should be future-proof, what is kind of the big problems in doing this? So first, what do they actually need to make decisions on? So whether it's energy labels and carbon, whether it's climate risks. Now, if I go to a bank, they want to do the energy labels and carbons first, but now then they want to maybe to look at the climate risks as well, but that they're not really sure how actually the European Central Banks wants them to look at it, and if actually if they are sure about that, they don't know how the local authorities is basically what are their expectations. So there's a lot of kind of let's say fuss about what should be done. Then in terms of renovation potential, that's very kind of everybody would like to know that, okay, how much would I need to put money into my portfolio in order to get be above B or be above B, for example, in terms of energy labels. This is a kind of a question that everybody wants answers, but they might not like have ways to get there. And then in terms of renovation, also it costs something, right? So what are the renovation costs and effects, not only to the basically your portfolio's performance, but also to the value of the building. So these are the things. And then the biggest thing, where to get the data. So actual energy consumption and resident data is normally the thing that you need before you make these decisions. And that's also one single thing that we try to overcome. So and availability to make these decisions, this data is the single biggest obstacle in making this decision with the needed efficiency. So there's a need for this data. Many of companies in this space are first data collecting companies, and then they have a technology, and then they will basically give consultancy. Or then like us, we are just like, we provide all the analytics and then somebody else does the implementation. Also differences with residential, detached and commercial and different asset classes. So at least from our customer base, the institutional, whether they're investors or property owners, they don't have the kind of the luxury to select which asset classes they need to solve these things for. So they need to actually look at different asset classes as well. So you basically need to have your data collection scheme, or how do you get the data from different asset classes, and which have different like obstacles always. And then what do you actually need for your level of decision making? So if you want to super max optimize one building to be like super energy efficient, that's one thing. But if you want to look at, for example, 10,000 or 40,000 properties and figure out which is the last performing quarter of that for making some decisions, there's a different level of accuracy and data needs for that decision making. And then a question, what is an optimal renovation? That's like a big challenge, because obviously many of the companies who talk about net zero, they only look at the energy performance side, which is good, and there's very much good companies doing that, but net zero should look at the operational and the embedded carbon side, the whole life cycle of carbon. So for example, if we do a renovation, okay, the easiest example of this that there's a building which is performing very bad, so we bulldoze that and we build a very energy efficient LEED Green Platinum building there. So so the embedded carbon add would be basically the building we just bulldozed, that would be needed to be added to basically the whole life cycle of the carbon of that operation. But it's not done like that, at least not in the, let's say, like either regulatory extent, but these things need to be considered. And then what is your objective as a stakeholder? So a renovation or a net zero pathway for an investor or a housing provider is different than for a government, for example. And the optimal renovation is different based on how do you look at real estate and what you want to get out of them. Also, if you can have this win-win situation that actually, in terms of if you're looking to get something out of your assets in terms of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years or never, it also kind of dictates how you should renovate your properties. And there's win-win scenarios there, but they're not intuitive. And then you should basically figure these things out. And then kind of the energy crisis, I should put it like with these points, inside these points, but looking at, like, for example, return on investment for ground source heat pumps when for example, the price of electricity goes up, return on investment, at least in the north here where we are, is much less. It's from 7 years to 3 years, depending, of course, the asset class. But then if you want to insulate your building with carbon intensive wool, should you do that or should you do something else? And obviously the prices and availability of different energy sources dictate that. So the optimal renovation is not so simple. So this is the real challenge. So how do we look at things? And we should see the clock. Yes, we have good time left. So how do we approach this? So our technology looks at how do we answer this challenge, let's say like that. Our technology looks at local data points, and then we combine it with the science, statistics, and algorithms, what we've been pretty much developing since 2015. We look at different data sources. Depending on the market area, this data is more or less available. Then we have data partners, and then in some market areas, we don't need different data points. And then we have ability, and this is the Coca-Cola recipe side, we have the ability to understand buildings. And we have an ability to understand buildings in a detailed, scalable way. So basically what we do, we digitalize local building code in a way. With this, our platform, whether we're looking at 1 or 1 million buildings, we're able to provide property specific analytic ranging from energy performance into the whole life cycle of carbon emissions. And then we can do, for example, optimal retrofit plans and so on. I will jump out a little bit. Can you see, well, I hope you guys can see, you guys can see a map. Can you see a map? Somebody say. Maybe somebody sees a map. Okay, good. So I basically, with our platform, the idea that you can just click on a building and you don't need to input any data. So the platform immediately knows basic information of the buildings that we can basically look into. And then we have a statistically assumed renovations for this specific building. And because we know our data sources can be able to collect the building year, building type, building purpose, locations, our model makes the magic that we can basically figure out the systems, components, and materials put to this building. And then we have the statistically assumed renovation plans also replacing these systems, components, and materials. These together with understanding of weather patterns in this area, we get to understand how the building operates and how does it consume energy and carbon, obviously, as well. And then when our customers or somebody who are making these investments or finance decisions, whatever they are, if they have the better knowledge, they can import their renovation plans, or then they can just like, introduce ones and start to optimize renovations. So for example, for this specific building, if we would do a window part change, we would immediately understand how does it affect the energy consumption, how does it affect the CO2 emissions, is the embodied carbon, and also then how does it, how does it kind of affect the OPEX, sorry, the value of the building as well, to OPEX, obviously. And Then, so that's kind of the basic thing. Again, we don't need any data inputs. We just click on a building, right? And then when we look at unit side, so going more deeper to the building, so we can just click on it. We can see the value of the whole building, the market value. In this space, we can look at the rents, and then we can jump into the ESG details, where, because we don't have any energy certificate information, so we have modeled everything with the calculation method that we are very transparent about. And then we look at, for example, the hazards here. So because I chose a property that has some ESG hazards, so but we can look at the river and coastal floods and how does it actually affect the value at risk here. And then we can see basically which are the which basically layers we have, and basically we don't create this data, we just use it to combine the property characteristics into our building. But that's like an example on how we basically, how we look at property, and basically how do we get in a property unit specific way to the results. Good. Back to the program, back to the deck. Hopefully you saw what I did, hopefully. Anyway, like our USPs in this sense that we don't basically need data collecting schemes to achieve good accuracy and transparency. Of course, depending on what decisions we are making, but for our institutional customers. So, and we do this for all asset classes. We have obviously flexible and secure technology behind it. So pretty much like every time when we get new multi-year deal with a government or a bank, there's a lot of compliance fine tuning, and I think we are already in a place that we are already plug and play compliant throughout compliance system, which is some sort of a USP that you didn't expect to tell when you were founding the company. That it's important. And very much low barrier onboarding because we don't need this data collecting scheme. And for example, with some of our customers, we can just start, and we already know where their properties are. And then in terms of renovation effects, if I need to pull one feature, is the property unit specific optimal renovation plan and cost, like able to do that and then do that in scale. And then understand the nonlinear relationship between the renovations, CapEx, OpEx, and then to the market and technical value. And then we do the whole life cycle of carbon, obviously, when it becomes relevant. So as said, we provide all the ingredients needed to assess these things. That's how we say it. Before we end, I think we have a few minutes, a few things what we are working on. So biggest cases for us and where are we bringing our ESG impact at the moment is the decarbonization pathways for portfolios and cities. And then we help the financial sector to align with the new normal. Those are the biggest thing based on the other growth stuff that company in our phase does. And this is a good example what we are working with the City of London at the moment. So we work with the City of west of London, and we're modeling 1 million buildings for London. And we basically don't get access to the data. So we're doing a decarbonization pathway with multiple options together with Arup. That's a really, really interesting thing, and in a scale. And what do we see coming next? So sustainable and green finance stuff with a bunch of derivatives. The green transition will be financed by institutional and somewhat private lenders. And we're already seeing a lot of products coming. So basically a renovation loan, for example, and how to make money out of those. Then these moving climate objectives and regulation is changing locally and globally. So the goal is moving all the time a little bit, which is something which is not only a bad thing. It's kind of creates different opportunities. And obviously there's increasing amount of good technology available and lots to share. So what we see is a lot of polarization. It's because there's a lot of capital in this space, at least, maybe not in other spaces, but there's a lot of capital, VC capital, for example, in this space. So there's a lot of good technologies emerging, but because the goal is moving and there's like local differences, there's lots to share. Cooperation behind success stories. So even though we basically like we are the one step forward, basically. So if there's a smart building or digital technologies, and there's a lot of scale in the property owners, let's say that they have tens of thousands of units, they don't have time to digitalize their building stock. So one cooperation example is that we basically point out with our technology to places where other companies will basically put smart technologies or start to apply smart technologies. Much more cost efficient for the customer, and also they can start to decarbonize their stuff actually immediately. And in the end, we really see a change happening in this industry because of all this. Thank you. Questions?
Yeah, thank you very much, Topi. One question that I have, what is the most difficult part right now?
Do you mean like basically for us in a way to basically scale or
Yeah, or to start doing this? Is it to get the data out of those buildings, or where?
It's to be honest, it's still in a way in the decision making side. That's the hardest one. And for example,
to get real estate to decide to start moving.
Yeah, especially the institutional ones. And then like after that, it helps that you don't need to ask the data from them. So we normally start in a way that we know, at least if it's a notable property owner, that we know which is their properties. We use data for that as well. And then we already have, let's say, some sort of offering almost ready before we actually engage. But then the next step would be understanding what data they have, and then if they don't have something, how to get that in a way modeled.
Yeah.
Yep.
How do they react when you first are showing them some first initial results?
Well, basically we don't start with it, so we basically explain our approach first, and then they kind of understand that we actually are there with those results. But there's been cases that they've been a little bit intimidated as well, to be honest. Yeah.
How much you can tell them about their properties?
To be honest, in the beginning, I think the only thing what is missing is like the, let's say, renovation history part, which is something that is hard to get. That's the hard part. But it's pretty much like we say that, it's like, don't worry, it's like doctor would do diagnostics on this without having a patient history in a way. So they understand it. And it also is a good way to engage them, because then they are interested to actually look at how would it look if the renovation history is there.
Yes.
So, yep.
Cool. Well, thank you very much, Topi. Hope to see you again soon, somewhere in the world too, at one of the events. And it was great having you with us.
Hey, thank you for having me. It was a pleasure and an honor. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day there in Finland.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.